What's up? What's up? What's up? Of course, it's me, your boy Richie Rich at Consumer Prime Support. Shoot another awesome video, cause that's what we do. Man, what's up? What's up? What's up? You know, at Consumer Prime Support, we review appliances. Today, we're gonna focus on a Whirlpool range that's a double oven and it's electric. All right, this portion of the video, we're gonna focus on the functions and the features. All right, so let's dive into that real quick so that you can actually see what we're looking at. All right, right now we're looking at directly the switches, the knobs that you use to activate the top portion or the surface elements on this particular range, and that's what we're gonna start with. So we're gonna let it rock for a second and we're gonna let it roll. All right, so of course, we talk about that's the left side on my left, and of course that's the right side there as well. We have a couple of the functions and features we're going to dive into there, but we're going to start off with the top surface. So we're going to pause it right there so you can actually see the video, check out the element. We're going to dive into the owner's manual a little bit. Of course, we talked about this is an electric double oven range made by Whirlpool. We're diving into the owner's manual right now so that we can get a lot of the functions and the features. All right, so let's rock, let's roll. We're going to talk about the cooktop first, and then we're going to talk about the actual oven. All right, so let's look at it right here where it says cooktop use. All right, it says control knobs can be set to anywhere between high and low. It says push in and turn to setting. All right, it says remember, when range is in use or on some models during the self-cleaning cycle, the entire cooktop area may become hot. All right, so we'll get into that where we're talking about the cooktop, the ceramic cooktop indicator lights, hot surface light. We're going to get into a lot of that when we talk about this appliance as well. All right, so we're going to start off, of course, with the elements. We're going to go back into the video just to pay attention to a couple things right here where it says cooktop on, right? Every time that you turn the switches, the light should identify, the light should illuminate, it should glow to let you know that the cooktop is on. Let's go back to the owner's manual. Sir, cooktop indicator light. It says the cooktop on indicator light is located on the console panel when any control knob on the console panel is turned on. The cooktop on indicator light will glow. All right, you also have the hot surface indicator light. The hot surface indicator light is located on the console panel. The hot surface indicator light will glow as long as any surface cooking area is too hot to touch, even after the surface cooking area is turned off. All right, so we're gonna see that. Again, this is to my left, the cooktop on light, and then it's gonna be to my right, the indicator light to let you know that it's hot. That's gonna be on there as well, so you're gonna be able to see that. All right, so it's actually right here. You can actually see all that to let you know that it's hot. So you want to pay attention to that. Again, if that's illuminated, it's telling you that it's too hot for you to touch it. So you just want to be careful with that. All right. So we're going to let that rock for a second. All right. This is a pretty decent oven just from the looks of it as well. So right now we're talking about the cooktop. We're talking about the triple burner. All right, so this is what the triple burner look like. We're going to go into that as well. We want to show you some live feed so you'll be able to see what it looks like when it's glowing, when everything is working properly. All right, so we're going to dive into that. So let's go into that real quick. It says the triple zone cooking element. All right, so it says the triple zone cooking element offers flexibility depending on the size of the cookware. Single size can be used in the same way as a regular element. The dual and triple size combo, the single, dual and outer elements is recommended for larger. All right, cookware, larger cookware for larger quantities of food and home canning. All right, so you do have that there as well. You also have the dual zone cooking. So we're going to get into that. And then of course you have your melt element. So again, we're going to show you exactly what it looks like. This is the functions and features. You see that we did the dual, the triple. Now we're doing the dual. We're doing a single in the middle. So you can actually just see how it really looks. You can put a bigger pot, a medium-sized pot, and a small-sized pot in there as well. All right, so that's the benefit of having the triple. All right, that's the biggest of the all the burners. This one here is the dual. All right, so again, we show you exactly what it looks like for the dual. We didn't really go into the single on this one. for the dual, but you can actually have an idea what it looks like from the previous one when we did on the triple. Of course, you do have the single there in the back as well, so we're going to pause the video a little bit, go into that. Right, so we can actually talk about that some. All right, so the dual zone cooking element. All right, it says the dual zone cooking element offers flexibility depending on the size of the cookware. All right, the single size can be used in the same way as a regular element. The dual size combines both the single and outer element and is recommended for larger size cookware. All right, so if you look, depending on which side you're looking at, side A is the dual, and of course side B is the single. All right, so that's really good. We like that. I didn't do that on the triple, so you can see this as well since we already here. The left side, my left, which is the C, is the single. The right side, my right, which is A, which is triple. And then of course you have B at the bottom, and that's the dual. So if you're looking at the melt element, it says the melt cooking element offers flexibility due to a wide range of settings between high and melt. The high heat option can be used to boil small amounts of liquid quickly. To reduce the power setting, turn the knob clockwise. The melt setting is designed for delicate foods that require low heat, all right, such as when melting chocolate or holding sauces. All right, use cookware appropriate in size for the melt cooking element. All right, so this is an awesome feature that you can use. They had this feature years ago. This is not something new. It's almost like having the simmer button back in the day on the older ones. You'll press the simmer button and it'll be able to simmer between a certain shade depending on the knob. If you look at the knob, it's shaded for a certain color. So it might be between 1, 2, and 3. It will have a gray stripe to let you know that's the simmer part of it, and it only can simmer only to that point. This one have the same theory, but it has melt, and you can do sauces or melt chocolate. It's just like a simmer button, nothing new there. All right, so you do have the rapid boil zone. All right, and this says this is on some models. All right, it says the rapid cooking zone offers additional cooking flexibility. It seems like all of them do. The rapid boil cooking zone can be used to boil liquids faster. The lowest melt setting can be used to prepare sauces, to brown or sauce foods, and to keep foods as a low temperature. Use cookware appropriate in size for the rapid boil cooking zone. All right, so that's where we are with that as well. All right, so it has the warmer zone element. We can dive into that as well. We are going to allow this unit to roll, man, so you can actually see it. So you do have the melt. It says melt here, warm zone here. You can actually see that. So we're going to let that joint rock, let that joint roll. So it's a lot of elements here, man. A lot of elements, a lot of options to choose from when you're using this burner. And that's one of the things that we really like about the glass move top. So we also going to get into the maintenance of it, how to really allow it to not scratch, how it to exactly like keep it, you know what I mean, so it doesn't really look it does create an ugly look, like scratches and dark spots on the glass, because it is glass, so you just want to be careful with that as well. And we always go into the size pots, the best pots to use, and all that type of stuff as well. So we can dive into where it says warm zone element. It says use the cooktop warm zone element to keep cooked food warm. 1 hour is the recommended maximum time to maintain food quality. Do not use it to heat cold foods. All right, keep that in mind. The warm zone element can be used alone or when any of the other surface cooking areas are being used. The warm zone element area will not glow red when cycling on. However, the cooktop or indicator light will be displayed when the cooking warm zone element is in use. All right, couple things, couple bulletin points. Use only cookware recommended for oven and cooktop use. Cover all foods with a lid or aluminum foil. When woman baked foods, allow a small opening in the cover for moisture to escape. To avoid damage to the cooktop, do not use plastic wrap to cover food because the plastic wrap may melt. Makes sense. Use pot holders or even mitts to remove food. All right, and this is how you turn on and off the warm zone. All right, so that's pretty cool there. All right, so got a couple cookwares we can go in so we can dissect this, and then we're probably going to jump into the oven. It says important, do not leave empty cookware on a hot surface, cooking area, element, or surface burner. Makes sense. Ideal cookware should have a flat bottom. All right, so these are the couple things that you're gonna have to consider. When you get a new stove, you wanna check your old pots to make sure that they are capable of being used, especially with a glass top. It has to be flush, it has to be flat. The flatter it is to the surface, the more easier for it to conduct the heat. All right, straight sides and a well-fitted lid. And the material should be on medium to heavy thickness. Rough finishes may scratch the cooktop or core, so you want to think about that. Aluminum and copper may be used as a core of base in cookware. However, when used as a base, they can leave permanent marks on the surface. Again, it's glass, so you can scratch the surface, you can scratch the glass. Trust me, it looks bad when you're not taking care of it, so you just want to be careful. All right, cookware material is a factor in how quickly and evenly heat is transferred, which affects cooking results. A non-stick finish has the same characteristics as its base material. For example, aluminum cookware with a non-stick finish would take on the properties of aluminum. All right, it says cookware with non-stick surface should not be used under the broiler. Check for flatness by placing the straight edge of a ruler across the bottom of the cookware. While you rotate the ruler, no space or light should be visible between it and the cookware. All right, so this is where you have the example to check the status of your pots. See if it's flat enough. All right, so this is something you can do when you purchase the new oven. All right, use the following chart as a guide for cookware materials. All right, so the cookware, you have aluminum and cast iron. Characteristics. All right, so this is what's telling you is it good? Is it a good conductor or not? Is it best to use on a glass cooktop or not? It's going to tell you all that. And again, you can always pause this, look at it for yourself, evaluate it, check it out. It says heats quickly and evenly. That's aluminum. Suitable for all types of cooking. Medium or heavy thickness is best for most cooking tasks. May leave aluminum residue, which may be diminished if cleaned immediately after cooking. All right, so you want to do that. Cast iron heats slowly and evenly. Good for browning and frying. Maintains heat for slow cooking. Rough edges or burrs may scratch the cooktop. All right, so keep that in mind. Of course, you have ceramic or ceramic glass. It says may scratch the cooktop. Heat slowly but unevenly. Follow manufacturer's instructions. Ceramic or ceramic glass is not good. All right. Copper, it says heats very quickly and evenly. May leave copper residues, so we talked about that. With may be diminished if cleaning immediately after cooking. Can leave a permanent stain or bond on the cooktop if overheated. Earthenware, follow manufacturer's instructions. Use on low heat settings. May scratch the cooktop. Porcelain, enamel. Steam, it says see stainless steel or cast iron. Porcelain, enamel, bakeware without the metal base may bond to the cooktop if overheated. Stainless steel heats quickly but unevenly. A core base, aluminum or copper or stainless steel provides even heating. All right, so gotta keep that in mind when you're looking at this joint, man. You're talking about the pot. Let's look at it. Home cannon, so we can look at some of this stuff as well. It says use flat bottom cookware for best cooking results and energy efficiency. The cookware should be about the same size as the cooking area outlined on the cooktop. Cookware should not extend more than 1/2 or 13 millimeters outside the area. We talk about this a lot. All right, so if it's more than 1/2 inch bigger, then you got a problem. It's not going to cook properly. Your pots are too big. All right, so you might want to go get a gas range. Gas, in my opinion, is just better. All right, home cooking, home canning. All right, it says canning can be performed on a glass smooth top cooking surface or traditional or coil element cooking. When canning for long periods, alternate the use of surface cooking areas or elements between batches. This allows time for the most recent use areas to cool. All right, so you have that. Do not place canner on two surface cooking areas or elements at the same time. On ceramic glass models, use only flat bottom canners to avoid damage to the cooktop and elements. All right, so you want to think about that as well. All right, so we're going to go back to the video and just look at that real quick. Again, it is a smooth top, so you want to be extremely careful. One of the biggest issues that normally happens with this is that the cooktop scratches and cosmetics just get damaged and it just looks pretty bad. All right, so right now we're going to dive into the oven portion of this. All right, so we're gonna let the video roll for a second. We already did. So we're gonna dive into the oven, man, talk about some of the features for the oven. So according to this, it says the feature guide. All right, warning, food poison hazard. This is do not let food sit in oven more than 1 hour before or after cooking. Doing so can result in food poisoning or sickness. All right, so you can read the disclaimer. It's right in front of us. All right, so there's the upper and the lower oven. All right, so the upper oven has bake. You have your frozen bake. You have a broil. You have a keep warm, cook time, start time. Of course, you have your lower oven that deals with the bake, broiler, keep warm. It's also a convection oven as well. You have precise clean, you have steam clean, right? So you can clean this in both ways. We talked about the warm zone on and off that you can turn off. You have your clock and your light button. Then of course, you have your buttons that you can press if you want to press the bake or broil, setting the temperature with the number settings here. And of course, if you want to set the clock, another option there. You also have the timer set on and off. You have different settings you can go to. You also have the start and cancel for the upper oven. You have your start and cancel for the lower oven. And you also have this button where you can lock the controls here, where it says hold for 3 seconds. In our opinion, we said hold for 3 seconds, but we're gonna dive into this oven to find out what else this can do. We talked about the clock. We talked about the oven cavity light, the timer set on and off for the oven. The start upper and the start lower, cancel upper, cancel lower, the bake upper and the bake lower, baking and roasting as well. So a lot of these features you can have. We're going to dive into some of this joint as well. So you can also, we're going to download the owner's manual in the description box as well. All right, frozen bake for the upper only. All right, so you want to keep that in mind. Pre-packed food. All right. So it's teaching you exactly how to do it. So, you know, this is stuff that you can do yourself. We can actually go by all this and just keep it moving. And if you want to pause it, you can see it as well. All right. You got your settings. It says enables you to personalize the audible tones and oven operation to suit your needs. See the oven use section. All right. So that's where we are. All right. So we're going to roll down into that as well. So that's page, let me see what we got. Here we go. All right, electronics control display. This is a display with flash when powered up or after a power loss. Press cancel to clear when the oven is not in use. The time of day is displayed. Of course, you have a sound volume button. Set the pitch of the tone to either high or low. End of cycle tone activates or turns off the tones that sound at the end of a cycle. Here you also have tones on this side. It says tones are audible signals indicating the following: 1 tone, valid keypad press, oven is preset, long tone, kitchen timer, long tone with reminder tone every time, functions have been entered. All right, 3 tones, invalid keypad press. 4 tones, end of cycle when reminder tone every minute. Use the setting key to change the tone setting. All right, so we can also go into that as well. You have your key press tone, but we're going to go into the setting and then jump back and forth. Settings. Many features of the oven control can be adjusted to meet your personal needs. It says these changes are made using the settings keypad. Use the keypad setting to scroll through the features that can be changed. Each press of the setting keypad will advance the display of the next setting. After setting the feature to be changed, the control will prompt you for the required input. Details of all of the feature changes are explained in the following sections. Press cancel upper or cancel lower to exit setting. You also have the temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. The temperature is preset to Fahrenheit, but can be changed to Celsius, and it shows you how to do that. Audible tones disabled, turn off all tones, including the end of cycle tone and key press tones. All right, so we talked about key press. It says activate or turns off the tones when the keypad is pressed. Reminder tones. It turns off the short repeating tone that sounds every 1 minute after the end of cycle tones. All right, you have your 12 or 24 hour clock. All right, and then you have your 12-hour shutdown. So the oven control is set to automatically shut off the oven 12 hours after the oven indicates a cook or clean function. This will not interfere with any timed or delayed cook functions. All right. Then of course you got languages as well. Scroll and display text. So your language options are English, Spanish, and French, and it shows you how to do that. All right. Oven temperature offset and control. It says important. Do not use a thermometer to measure an oven temperature. I say that all the time. It says elements will cycle on and off as needed to provide consistent temperature, but they may run slightly hot or cold at any point in time due to his cycling. Most thermometers are slow to react to temperature change and will not provide an accurate reading due to this cycling. The oven provides accurate temperatures. However, it may cook faster or slower than your previous one, so the temperature can be adjusted to personalize it for your cooking needs. It can be changed in Fahrenheit or Celsius. And of course, they go into that. That's one of the things that you got to get accustomed to after you purchase a new appliance. It's not going to work exactly like the old one you had. It's going to be a little bit different. It might be a little bit hotter. It might be a little bit colder, but you can make those adjustments. All right. And it's in the owner's manual for you to do so. All right. So it teaches you how to calibrate the temperature. All right. Demo mode. That's for when you're in the store. Energy safe. It says the energy safe mode deactivates the display to reduce energy consumption. The setting will be activated after being idle for several minutes. Any mode may be used with the range in energy safe by selecting the desired mode. All right, so let's go into some of this stuff up here as well. All right, so I just want to make sure that we're good. Important. Food must be at serving temperature before placing it in the warm oven. Food may be held up to 1 hour. However, breads and casseroles may become too dry if left in the oven during the keep warm function. For best results, cover food. The keep warm function allows hot cooked foods to stay at serving temperatures. All right, so that's cool there. Good to know. To use keep warm for the desired oven. All right, so it teaches you how to do that. All right, couple notes, we can read that. When cooking in a single oven, the temperature may be changed at any time by pressing the number keypads to enter the desired temperature and then press start for the selected oven. All right, when cooking in both ovens, press any number on the keypad and follow the on-screen prompts to select the desired oven. Press the number keypads to enter the desired temperature and then press start for the selected oven. This also has a Sabbath mode as well. So that's good. The Sabbath mode sets the oven to remain on in a bake setting until turned off. When the Sabbath mode is set, only the bake cycle will operate. All other cooking and cleaning cycles are disabled. No tones will sound and the display will not indicate temperature changes. When the oven door is open or closed, the oven light will not turn on or off. And the oven heating elements will not turn on or off immediately. All right, so it teaches you how to activate it and also how to deactivate it. All right, so that's cool there. You got different rack positions, so we can probably go back to the video so we can see that. So we can see me pressing a couple of the buttons, so you can actually see, right? Press 1 for upper, press 2 for lower, so you have that option. This is the upper portion of it, and of course we always talk about the different rack positions. All right, so you can see that as we move this over here. So you can see that you got the light, you got the broil element up top, right? And then you have the bake hidden at the bottom. Then you have the rack positions there. All right, of course you have your lower for the broiler or bake. So we've done that. So it teaches you how to really use the oven. All right, you can open it slightly there as well. And of course that's the door. You have the convection there as well. So we got a couple things that we still got to get to. You got different rack positions, and again we'll show you that. We're going to pause it there, go back to that, and then pause it a little bit so we can dive into the rack positions on this particular oven. All right, let's get it. All right, so the rack position lower oven, you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's going to be specific on what is best to cook in these different rack positions. 1, you're talking about large roast or poultry. 2, roasted meats. 3, most baked goods and casserole. 4, broiled meats, poultry, and fish. 5, broiling, searing meats, hamburgers, steaks. It says for hamburgers and patties to have a well-seared exterior and a rear interior in the lower oven, use a flat rack in position 5. Slide 1 should cook for approximately 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. Side 2 should cook for approximately 4 to 5 minutes. Expect a moderate degree of smoke when broiling. Alright, so that's one of the things that we love about the owner's manual. It goes in depth, teaches you how to use it. If you're going to use multiple racks, cooking, baking, layer cakes on 2 racks, it gets into a lot of that, so we can continue to go over that some. 2 racks, it says use rack positions 2 and 4 for regular baking. Your convection only says 2 rack. Alright, use rack positions 2 and 4 for convection baking. Alright, so it's telling you that as well. Same thing. Baking layer cakes on 2 racks. For best results when baking cakes on 2 racks, use rack positions 2 and 4 with the convection bake function. Place the cakes on the racks as shown. Alright, so it teaches you how to do that. Baking cookies on 2 racks. For the best results when baking cookies on 2 racks, use rack positions 2 and 4 with the bake function. Alright, so that's cool there. Do not want to really miss where it says aluminum foil. It says important to avoid permanent damage to the oven bottom finish. Do not line the oven bottom with any type of foil or liner. For best cooking results, do not cover an entire oven rack with foil because air must be able to move freely. Alright, so that's one of the things that you want to keep in mind. Don't put it on the lower cavity. It does weld itself to the cavity. You also want to make sure it's not covering the rack. I used to say that to customers back in the day, to put it over the rack, because a lot of customers are not trying to allow the food to spill over on the cavity of the oven, so it spills on the racks. You just spills on the aluminum foil. You take the aluminum foil and then actually throw it in the trash, but it's taken away from the circulation of the airs to move freely, so it's not a good idea. All right, you do have a self-cleaning option for a reason, and if you need to self-clean, I suggest you use it. All right, position racks and bakeware to avoid permanent damage to the porcelain finish. Do not place food or bakeware directly on the oven door or bottom. All right, racks. Position racks before turning on the oven. Do not position racks with bakeware on them. Make sure racks are level. Place food so it will not rise into the broil element. Allow at least a ½ inch or 1.3 centimeters between pans and the broil element. To move a rack, pull it out to the stop position. Raise the front edge and then lift it up. Use the following instructions and charts as a guide for position racks. All right, and this is for the upper oven. So there is an upper and a lower. All right, so rack positions for the upper and the lower, you only have 2 options, 1 and 2. All right, 1, all foods. Simple and plain. All right, bakeware, here we can dive into that a little bit. To cook food evenly, hot air must be able to circulate. Allow 2-inch or 5 centimeter of space around footwear and oven walls. Use the following chart as a guide. How to position the rack, the number of pans. All right, center of rack, side by side. Refer to the previous illustration. All right, so that's information there. All right, so we talked about a couple of the different things. Of course, the venting for the upper and the lower. The oven vents release hot air and moisture from the ovens and should not be blocked or covered. Blocking or covering the vents will cause poor air circulation, affecting cooking and cleaning results. Do not set plastic, paper, or any other items that could melt or burn near the oven vents. That's the hottest point. Inside the oven, that's where it vents out at. So you want to keep that in mind. Frozen bake technology. Frozen bake technology can be used to cook pre-packed frozen food without needing to preheat the oven and without over-browning the food. There are 4 pre-programmed food options to choose from: pizza, lasagna, nuggets, and fries, and pies. Frozen bake technology should only be used for these foods. Cook only 1 package at a time when using frozen bake technology. Use the recommended temperature and maximum recommended time for the packaging. A beep will alert you to check the food's doneness before the cook time is completed. And again, at the end of the cook time, the display will prompt you to add to the cook time or end the cycle. All right. Cool there. Baking and roasting. Then we got the broiling as well. So since we're on that side, we're going to dive into the broiling first, and then we go to the preheat. When broiling, preheat the oven for 5 minutes before putting food in unless recommended otherwise in the recipe. Leave the desired oven door open 4.5 inch. On different ovens, they tell you leave the oven closed. On this one, they said leave it open. Alright, at the point of boil position to ensure proper boiling temperature. Position food on grid in a broiler pan and then place it in the center of the oven rack. Alright, odors and smoke are normal the first few times the oven is used or if the oven is heavily soiled. Changing the temperatures when broiling allows more precise control when cooking. The lower the broil setting is, the slower the cooking. Thicker meats and unevenly shaped pieces of meat, fish, and poultry may cook better at low broil settings. Refer to the position rack and bakeware section for more information. On lower settings, the broil element will cycle on and off to maintain the proper temperature. Alright, for best results, use a broiler pan and grid. It is designed to drain juices and help avoid spatter and smoke. Alright, and of course you can purchase one as well. Alright, preheating, and roasting. When beginning, and this is good for us to know, when you're preheating your oven, get this question a lot, how long should it take? When beginning a bake cycle, the oven will begin preheating after start is pressed. The oven will take approximately 12 to 15 minutes to reach 350 degrees or 177 degrees Celsius. With all of the oven racks provided with your oven inside the oven cavity. Higher temperatures will take longer to preheat. The preheat cycle rapidly increases the oven temperature. The actual oven temperature will go above your set temperature to offset the heat loss when your oven door is open to insert food. This ensures that when you place your food in the oven will begin at the proper temperature. Insert your food when the preheat tone sounds. Do not open the door during preheat before the tone sounds. Alright, another option there. Rapid preheat. Rapid preheat can be used to shorten the preheating time. Only one standard flat oven rack should be in the oven rapid preheat. Extra racks should be removed prior to starting rapid preheat. The preheating cycle should be completed before placing food in the oven. When the rapid preheat cycle is complete, the oven starts a normal bake cycle. Important. Alright, rapid preheat should be used only for single rack baking. Oven temperature. While in use, the oven elements will cycle on and off as needed to maintain a consistent temperature, but they may run slightly hot or cold at any point in time due to the cycling. Opening the oven door in use will release the hot air and cool the oven, which could impact the cooking time and performance. It is recommended to use the oven light to monitor cooking progress. It's best because every time you open the oven door, you're losing temperature, you're losing heat. So it can drop several hundred degrees because you open the door. Alright, note, on models with convection, the convection fan may run in the non-convection bake mode to improve oven performance. So you want to think about that as well. Alright, that's cool. We got AccuBake temperature management system. The AccuBake temperature management system electronically regulates the oven heat levels during a preheat and bake to maintain a precise temperature range for optimal cooking results. The bake and broil elements on burners cycle on and off in intervals. On convection range models, the fan will run while preheating and may be cycled on and off for short intervals during bake to provide the best results. This feature is automatically activated when the oven is in use. Before baking and roasting position racks, according to the position racks and bakeware section, when roasting, it is not necessary to wait for the oven preheat cycle to end before putting food in unless it is recommended in the recipe. Alright, lower oven convection cooking. In a convection oven, the fan circulates hot air continually distributes heat more evenly than the natural movement of air in a standard thermal oven. This movement of hot air helps maintain a consistent temperature throughout the oven, cooking foods more easily, crisping surface while sealing in moisture and yielding crustier breads. If the oven door is open during convection cooking, the fan will turn off immediately. It will come back on when the oven door is closed. The oven door must be closed for convection broiling. Alright, that's the difference. Position the racks according to the position racks and bakeware section before starting convection cooking. With convection cooking, most foods can be cooked at a lower temperature or for a shorter length of time. You also have to set the time clock. We talked about that. That's pretty easy. To delay time cook, another option that you can choose from there. All right, so it's talking about range care and self clean. All right, so this is very important for you to do some of the self cleaning there as well. We can come back to that. We're going to let some of the video roll a little bit. As we can see, the convection, different racks, the interior, the rack positions, all that stuff. You see the light. All right, so we like to try to give you as much as possible. You have the sensor here in the middle that senses the oven temperature, right? All right, so we can go back to the self-clean before we end, because it's just about finish up, man. It's not a lot. We're talking about self-cleaning cycle. All right, this is very important. This is important. The health of some birds is extremely sensitive to the fumes given off during the self-cleaning cycle. Exposure to the fumes may result in death to certain birds. Always move birds to another closed and well-ventilated room. All right, so if you have pets, you have birds, you know, it might affect it. Keep the kitchen well ventilated during the self-cleaning cycle to help get rid of heat, odors, and smoke. That's another thing. Want to make sure if you have ceiling fans, turn your ceiling fans on. If you have exhaust fans, turn the exhaust fans on, especially if it's the one hovering over the kitchen. Or if you have one that's a microwave, turn it on as well. All right, because the oven is going to get really hot. Do not block oven vents. We talk about that during the self-cleaning cycle. Air must be able to move freely depending on the model. See oven vent or oven vent section. Do not clean, rub, damage, or move the oven door gasket. Another thing that we always stress with ovens is the gasket is made of fiberglass. It's extremely thin, so when you start moving against it, rubbing against it, you're going to damage it. And then once it's damaged, then it's going to affect the performance of the oven because it's not going to be sealed properly. Your door is going to be open, and when that happens, it's going to lose temperature and it's going to affect the oven from cooking. All right, prepare range. Remove the broiler pan, grid, cookware, and bakeware. All cooking utensils, oven racks, aluminum foil, and or some models, the temperature probe from the oven. All right, so that's when you're self-clean. You want to remove all this stuff. All right, a lot of stuff there as well that you can dive into. It talks about how the cycle works. All right, stuff like that. Note that I don't really want to miss some stuff, so I might have to read some of the stuff here, or you can pause and read it yourself. It says use a damp cloth to clean inside the door edge and a 1/2 inch area around the inside oven cavity, being certain not to move or bend the gasket. Wipe out any loose soil to reduce smoke and avoid damage at high temperatures. Food reacts with porcelain, staining, etching, pitting, or faint white spots can result. This will not affect cooking performance. Remove plastic items from the cookware because they may melt, so we know that for sure already. The cooktop burners will not function during self-cleaning, so you can't be self-cleaning at about 1,000 degrees and try to cook on top of it. That's not going to work. All right, oven temperature must be below 500 degrees to program a clean cycle. All right, only one oven can be cleaned at a time. All right, both oven doors will lock when either oven is running the self-cleaning cycle. So you want to keep that in mind. One at a time, both the doors are going to be locked. How the cycle works: the heating and cooling of porcelain or steel in the oven may result in discoloring, loss of gloss, hairline cracks, and popping sounds. All right, precise clean. All right, that's another one there as well. Precise clean self-cleaning cycle is a one-touch step that uses very high temperatures and dissolves soil to a powdery ash. The precise clean feature will automatically determine the length of cleaning time needed based on the number of times the oven has been used since the last self-cleaning cycle. The maximum clean time is what? 4 hours. The minimum clean time is 2 hours. Once the oven has completely cooled, remove ash with a damp cloth. To avoid breaking the glass, do not apply a cool damp cloth to the inner door glass before it has completely cooled. The oven light is disabled during the self-cleaning cycle. All right, so you do have that option there to choose from. All right, to stop the self-cleaning cycle at any time, press cancel upper or lower. If the temperature is too hot, the oven doors will remain locked. When the lock shows in the display, the doors of the oven cannot be opened. To avoid damage to the doors, do not force the doors open when locked is displayed. You probably need to say that to the fire department. All right, people come in and they try to do in a door lock and It was self-cleaning. It looks like fire in there because there was so much grease that was all over the inside the oven. And they called the fire department and they break the door. So, you know, fire department's got to do what they got to do, but they break the door. They're not waiting for that. All right, note, only one oven can use the self-cleaning cycle at a time, and 12 hours must pass before the next self-cleaning cycle can begin. All right, the oven is preset for a 2-hour clean cycle. However, the time can be changed. Suggest clean times are 2 hours for light, between 3 and 4 hours for average to heavy soil. Use the following chart as a guide to determine the desired cleaning cycle. All right, so you have that option there: cleaning 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, regular 3 hours, 3.5, 4, max 4, and 3 hours. All right, steam clean on some models. All right, the steam clean feature is desired for light oven cavity bottom cleaning on models that have hidden bake in both ovens. All right, allow the range to cool to room temperature before using the steam clean feature. If your oven cavity is above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, oven cooling will appear in the display and the steam clean feature will not activate until it cools down. All right, important, because the water in the oven bottom is hot, do not open the oven door during the steam clean cycle. All right, so press any cancel at any time to end the cycle. The display will return to the time of day. All right, so they do have some helpful hints. All right, once the steam cycle is complete, remove all remaining water in the bottom of the oven with a sponge or cloth. Wipe any remaining moisture from the oven door interior, oven cavity, sides, and cooktop. Use a soft brush or nylon scrubber to wipe the oven interior. This may help with more stubborn stains. So it is recommended to use distilled or filtered water, as tap water may leave mineral deposits on the oven bottom. Use a cloth soaked with vinegar or lemon juice to remove any mineral deposits that may be left after the steam cycle. It says if the oven is heavily soiled, use the self-clean cycle. The steam cycle may be used first to eliminate most of the debris, resulting in a more effective self-clean. All right, of course, you have delay start to self-clean. You can do that as well. That's up to you. All right, and this is where we're talking about general cleaning tips that you can use there as well. This is important before cleaning. Make sure all controls are off. The oven cooktop are cool. Always follow labels, instructions on cleaning products and stuff like that. So you can buy cleaning products, right? It says here, stainless steel, you can clean. You got stainless steel cleaner, metallic paint, exterior porcelain, enamel surfaces. Again, you can pause this as well. Ceramic glass, right? So you got different cleaners, remove food and residue with the cooktop scraper. So you can use a scraper or a razor to clean it off. But again, you want to use it according to what's recommended on the cooktop cleaner when you purchase it. Read the proper instructions how to do so as well. You have this here on the owner's manual, how to really do it. It applies few dim size drops of a fresh cooktop cleaner to the affected areas. All right, rub a fresh cooktop cleaner onto the cooktop surface with blue cooktop cleaning pad. Some pressure is needed to remove stubborn stains. All right, so it goes into all that. Cooktop controls. To avoid damage to the cooktop controls, do not use steel, wool, abrasive cleaners, or oven cleaner. It's a stainless steel, so you got to be like really careful with it. All right, that's another thing there. Oven racks. All right, cleaning method, oven cavity. Do not use oven cleaners. All right, so you want to make sure you know that. All right, because I know some of us are used to using the oven cleaner from back in the day that choked the mess out you. Nah, you can't use that. It says food spills should be cleaned with oven cools. At high temperature, food reacts in porcelain, staining, etching, pitching, or faint white spots can result. Then of course you have the oven light, right? 40-watt appliance bulbs. Before replacing, make sure the oven and cooktop are cool and the control knobs are in the off position. Then of course you have troubleshooting tips and all this stuff, man, but you already know, man, we done dissect this joint. The owner's manual is going to be in the description box as well, so you can actually see that. So we're going to allow this video to finish up, man, but you know we finishing up with the functions and features, man. It's me, your boy Richie Rich. We in the lab dissecting this Whirlpool joint, man, and you know I'll talk to you guys to the next time. Peace. All right, so for this portion of the video, we're going to focus on the warranty. The manufacturer warranty. All right, so right now, of course, we're going to use our favorite site, and we're going to use Home Depot. Scroll down at the bottom to info and guides, and let's see what type of warranty this electric double oven range by Whirlpool is giving us. All right, let's see what their warranty is. So it says Whirlpool Major Appliance Limited Warranty. Of course, it start off by saying attach your receipt here. Proof of purchase is required to obtain warranty service. Please have the following information available when you call the Customer Experience Center: name, address, telephone number, model and serial number, a clear, detailed description of the problem, proof of purchase including dealer or retailer name and address. All right, so they want to make sure that you are the original purchaser. They're not playing no games. It says if you need service before contacting us to arrange service, please determine whether your product requires repair. Some questions can be addressed without service. Please take a few minutes to review the troubleshooting or problem-solving section of the use and care guide. Scan the QR code on the right to access additional resources or visit www.whirlpool.com/product_help. All right. So you have all that information, and you have numbers you can call Whirlpool whether you're in Canada or the US. All right, so let's focus on the warranty. What is covered? For 1 year from the date of purchase, when the major appliance is installed, operated and maintained according to instructions attached, or furnished with the product, Whirlpool Corporation or Whirlpool Canada LP. Hereafter, Whirlpool will pay for factory specified replacement parts and repair labor to correct defects in materials or workmanship that existed when this major appliance was purchased, or at its sole discretion replace the product. In the event of product replacement, our appliance will be warranted for the remaining term of the original unit's warranty period. All right, this is your sole and exclusive remedy under the limited warranty shall be product repair as provided herein. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, but you're only getting the standard manufacturer 1 year warranty, both parts and labor. You're not getting anything extra. That is it. So once that warranty is up, if you have any issues after that, you're going to have to pay out of pocket. And of course, you're going to keep that in mind as well. It says service must be provided by a Whirlpool designated service company. You already know this. It says limited warranty is valid only in the United States or Canada and applies only when the major appliance is used in the country in which it was purchased. It says this limited warranty is effective from the date of original consumer purchase. Proof of original purchase date is required to obtain service under this limited warranty. All right, nothing special. You're getting just an average 1 year manufacturer warranty. What is covered, what's not. We talk about that all the time. Warranty, it says in-home instruction, how to use the product. Commercial, non-residential, multi-family use or use inconsistent with published user, operator, or installation instructions. All right, so you can't be having a restaurant out here which mess around with your stove. But hey, they're not covering certain things, so you might want to keep it on a hush hush. It says defects of damage caused by the use of non-genuine Whirlpool parts or accessories. Conversion of products from natural gas to LP gas. Again, this is electric, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. Food or medicine loss due to product failure. Again, it's not really too many issues there, but hey, either way, they're not covering that. Pickup or delivery. This product is intended for in-home repair. All right, so they'll send people out. All right, this is the cost of repair or replacement under this excluded circumstances shall be borne by the customer. All right, so you got disclaimer of implied warranty as well. Disclaimer of representations outside of warranty, so we can read in that one. Whirlpool makes no representation about the quality, durability, or need for service or repair for this major appliance other than the representation contained in this warranty. If you want a longer and more comprehensive warranty than the limited warranty that comes with this major appliance, you should ask Whirlpool or your retailer about buying an extended warranty. All right, so hey, they just telling you straight up. That's all we giving you. That's all you're gonna get. All right, limitation of remedies, exclusion of incident and consequential damages. Your sole and exclusive remedy under the limited warranty shall be product repair as provided herein. Whirlpool should not be liable for incidental or consequential damages. Some states and province do not allow the exclusion or limitation of incidental or consequential charges, so these limitations and exclusions may not apply to you. This warranty gives you specific legal rights, and you also have other rights that vary from state to state or province to province. All right, cool. So that's it. Not much there. Same thing if you want to read it in Spanish or French. That look like Spanish there. All right, but either way, it is what it is. You're only getting the standard manufacturer warranty, man, and we're gonna take that into consideration. But we are out of here. Peace. All right, so for this portion of the video, we're gonna focus on the price. How much it's gonna cost you? Might cost you a little, might cost you a lot. Either way, it's gonna cost you. All right, so right now we are gonna use a couple of the sites that we normally use on a lot of our videos as well. If you're used to us by now, you already know we're gonna use Home Depot, Lowe's, and Best Buy. But so we're gonna start off with Home Depot. You can actually get this machine in different finishes or different colors, depending on how much you want to pay for it as well, depending on the finish as well. But we're going to start off with the stainless steel. That's the one that we recorded in our intro video. That's the one that we're dissecting. But again, if you have a different color, the price is subject to change. So you're looking at that right now. The original price was $15.99. They're saving you about 10%. So you're saving you $160, and you're talking about a special buy of $14.39. All right, you want to keep that in mind. That price is subject to change. The price may go up or it might go down or go back to the original price, but you want to factor in Black Friday, you want to factor in Thanksgiving, you want to factor in Christmas. So all these different holidays, the new year that's coming up, it's going to be a lot of sales on appliances, so you want to keep that in mind. You might go out there and get this for less than that. All right, but keep that in mind. Let's dive into the black. Standard black, man, let's see what it is. Hopefully my computer loads up a little bit there. It's taking forever. You're looking at $14.99 for the black. All right, let's look at the white, see if there's any difference in price there. $14.99 for the white. So there's no difference in price between the black and the white. Stainless steel, of course, costs a little bit more, so you know, because of the finish, because of the color, that's gonna cost you a little bit more. But it's cheaper for the stainless steel actually because of the sale that they have. But originally it's not this cheap, so you might want to go to save yourself about 50 bucks, 50 to 60 bucks going with the stainless steel, because that's on sale. All right, let's see what other site. Let's see what actually Lowe's has. Right now, you can get this unit in gas or electric as well. We already did the gas portion of this, so you can check this out. But of course, right now it's saying it's $15.99. View lower price in cart. So we will have to add it to our cart so we can see what the price is for that. Right now, if you look, it says free store pickup. Depending on the area that you're in, I can get it pretty soon. Tuesday, that's in March. Get it by March. We're in November. That's not soon. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem, man. All right, so you're looking at $14.39, right? That's what the price is for this particular unit. If you add it, or if you're getting it from Lowe's, they only have that one color, and then it's on back order, so you got to keep that in mind as well. So a lot of stuff that you got to think about. You got to think about an appliance when you purchase it. You got to think about availability. All right. So the next site we're going to go to is Best Buy. Do Best Buy have different options? Different colors? No, they don't. But the price on here is $1439.99. All right. So there's no difference really in the price between the stainless steel, between Home Depot, Lowe's, and Best Buy. Right around the same price. Even the black or the white is a little bit more expensive than the stainless steel model. You also want to think about availability that we always stress as well. Delivered in 2 to 3 weeks, depending on where you are. Again, we like to show different videos and pictures if we can help. This thing takes forever to load up. Bear with your boy. But we can show you guys some of this stuff so you can actually see it. And we recorded it as well. All that stuff inside of this joint. But this is just the price, man. When you're talking about an appliance that's gonna cost you some bread, man, you're talking about at least $1,500. That's without taxes. But that's where we are with this unit, man. We dissecting this joint and we still in the lab, putting in the work. We out. Peace. Alright, so for this portion of the video, we're gonna focus on the parts. Man, cost per repair. How much is gonna cost you to repair this appliance? You already know what the warranty is according to Whirlpool. They're not giving you much. So once the 1-year manufacturer warranty is over, how much is gonna cost you to repair this unit? If you need a new cooktop because the glass is broken, elements, switches, control, door glass, any parts you might need, how much is going to cost you. For this example, of course, our labor is $150 for the installation of all the parts, and of course we do a slight markup on the parts, so we're going to let you know exactly how much it is, man. So let's dive into it. All right, so we're on SearsPartsDirect.com. First thing that we're going to dive into is internal oven parts. So we're looking at the bake, the broil, and the convection fan. All right, so let's see how much the price for that's gonna be. But we're talking about the range broil element for the lower. All right, so you're looking at $67.48, originally $74 for this part. Really affordable, really good price for an element. That is definitely less than most appliances when you're talking about heating elements and all that type of stuff. That's really cheap. So you're talking about at least $100, excuse me, for the part. Labor, you're talking about $150, at least $250 minimum for the appliance. That's just a broiler for the lower. Of course, you have your bake, $60.61. Common issue for the bake and the broil to short out, burn up, break in half, or not come on at all. So when you press that button, it's not heating up. One of the most common issues, these parts tend to go bad. Again, you're looking at $60.61. The broiler $60.03. So again, the same price, $250, the minimum that you're going to spend for that. Convection fan assembly, that's number 5. So let's see where that is. That's the motor and everything there. Normally when we replace the motor, you also replace the fan blade here as well, just to make sure, because it's kind of difficult to get it off sometimes, so you might have to break it. So when you're talking about the fan assembly, which is the motor, you're looking at $127.15. If we say that part is $150, then we're factoring the convection fan. That's an additional $50. So you're talking about $200 for both of these parts. And then when you install the labor, you're talking about $150. So you're looking at least $350, the minimum. All right. So let's see what else they might have on here as well as we dive into this joint, waiting for this to load up here. Cover, heating element. I don't have a lot of issues with the heating element or even the convection fan going bad for this particular unit. So when you're talking about the elements are extremely durable. So if you happen to need that, of course, part is $150, labor $150. You're talking about $350. All right, cover, not a huge issue. It's a metal piece. They don't break that. They don't break at all. I have never had to replace one. All right, lower door parts. So we can dive into that just to see how much it's going to cost you if you happen to need door hinges, if you happen to need door glass, or the door panel. All right, so let's dive into that. So we're talking about the microwave oven door, looking at $92, but they're saving you 36% off, which is $58.99. So you're talking about $100 for the door. I think that's pretty common for most doors, and plus it is stainless steel, so it's not a plastic door handle. So that will probably cost you, I would say, $100, labor $150, $250. The outer glass, depending on the color. So you have a white here, that's $219. You have another one that could be black or stainless steel. So you're looking at least MSRP $300 originally. You got $310 for the white. So let's say if this part is $350, labor, you're talking about $150. So you're actually talking about $500 to replace the glass door, which is number 2. I'm sorry, this whole entire thing here. All right, cost you some bread if you happen to need that glass. All right, bracket, not a common issue as well. Like I said, here's the stainless steel, $249.99. All right, and it's on back order, so you want to think about that as well. All right, so your technician will let you know that. The oven inner glass, you're looking at $68.99, originally $76, saving you 9%. So if you happen to need that, part is $100, labor $150, you're talking about $250. All right, hinge If you happen to need the hinges, we normally replace both hinges at the same time. So if you happen to need that, I would say for this example, hinges are $150 for both. Labor $150, talking about $300. Liner, not a common issue, but if you happen to need that, $130.38. Retainer, $108.18, not a common issue there as well. Hinge receiver, all right, not a common issue, but if you happen to need those, we're saying both together, $30.30, so you probably spend $100 for both, all right, but not a common issue. Name range plate, all right, not a common issue, but if you happen to need that, $25.96, you can get that yourself, all right. So spacer for the handle and all that stuff, not a common issue, but really cheap price. All right, and that's the thing I can say about this appliance. The parts are extremely affordable. That's one of the things that we like. We pay attention to that, how much it's going to cost you to repair it. And like I said, we're doing a slight markup as well. All right, the range cooktop, main cooktop, tends to crack. You have thermal fuse. People done drop stuff on it. It actually, I've replaced them for cosmetic use. They're scratched. They look kind of ugly, dark, black. Right, so they don't really look that well. Your elements are common issue that typically burn out and go bad, so we're going to discuss a couple of those. All right, so the main cooktop, if you happen to need that, you're looking at $319.99. So let's say that part is $400, labor $150. You're talking about at least $550 depending on the color. The white, same price, right? $350, $150. I'm sorry, I said 400, 150, that's $550. So that's almost $600. Yeah. All right. It's a cooktop. They gonna cost you some bread, so try not to break them. Elements, if you happen to need the elements, man, that's $117.08, $75.99, $112.12. All right, these elements, common issues, $65.88, $51.13, depending on which one you need. If you happen to need the dual or the dual on the left rear, all right, and if you have the triple, you have different ones that you can actually purchase. I think this one is the triple when I looked at it initially, so you're talking about at least $150 here. All right, $150 possibly for this one. This one is $100, so that might be a little bit cheaper, or they might charge you $150 for that as well. All right, so just say on average $150, about $300 to replace the elements. All right, that's what you're gonna spend. All right, so it all depends on the company that comes out as well. Range oven door lock wire harness, not a common issue, man. Main wire harness, not a common issue. We don't replace wire harnesses that often. It would have to be some type of infestation. It has to be something shorting out, burning up. But typically, nah, not a big issue. All right. Not a big issue. Let's go into the control panel and the control board. This is where it's going to get expensive. This is where it's going to cost you some bread. All right, so we have your control board number 5. You have different switches that you have to turn the knob to activate the elements. You also have number 11, which is your control panel or your touchpad. When you press the button, it might not stop. You can start the oven, or you might not be able to start the oven. You try to hit the number 5 and it doesn't register. It doesn't give you a chime. It doesn't say anything. You try to keep pressing the button and it's not that. So it could be a bad control panel. All right, so we can dive into a couple of these real quick. So rage control panel, that's just the front. That's normally replaced because of cosmetic use. The vent is directly underneath of it, especially when you're cooking with your pots. The generated heat from you cooking affects the control panel and causes it to be discolored. All right, so those are normally like cosmetic use because it doesn't crack the actual metal base. So you don't really have to worry about that. Control board, you're looking at $215.99, originally $316.48. So I'm gonna say if it's $316.48, you're talking about at least $400 for that, right? $400, labor $150, you're talking about $550. All right, indicator light, common issue that these tend to break. So when you turn the light on, you're not able to see it illuminate. It could be the issue where the light has popped off. Pretty common for that to happen. Knobs $24.20, but that's a really good price. Switches, look at the price for these switches: $54.99, $43.99, $57.99, originally $69, right? $29.99. So when you're talking about range switches for this particular unit, all right, you're talking about $100 for the part, labor $150, you're talking about $250. All right, range touch control panel $212.08, you're talking about $227.73 originally. So if you happen to need that, talking about at least $300. Same thing here with the switch. Sometimes they call it a switch assembly. The difference is in the color. So let's say it's $300, all right? And then your labor is $150, so you're talking about $450. Again, you got the stainless steel, that's $233. You got the black, so this might be the white, but depending on the color, it's gonna cost you more. All right, so that's pretty cool. But in either way, the prices are extremely still affordable though. All right, so you got the light socket, not a common issue. The only issue you normally have is the light bulb go out and you just replace the light bulb. Sensor, common issue, that does go bad. Your terminal block that sits here, common issue, they burn out. And your thermostat in the back, common issue, that can burn out as well. But mostly the cavity of this unit is extremely durable. Don't really have any issues replacing any oven cavities. All right, anti-tip bracket, $6.99, but that's for installers. So when you get it installed, you must have this installed. All right, range high limit thermostat, originally $81, so $100 for the part. Labor $150, you're talking about $250. Common issue that this happened, it'll shut both the bake and the broil oven, bake and the broil elements off because it exceeds the temperature. It's a safety device, just like any fuse. If it blows, it stops it from coming on, and your oven won't bake or broil at the same time. Right, so you try tearing either one of them on, it doesn't come on. Range leg, not a common issue if you happen to need that. Sensor, common issue, you're looking at the price $110, so let's milk it up to like $150. Labor $150, you're talking about $300 for the oven sensor. All right, you might get an F3 code, F30 code. Oven not heating up properly, yeah, common issue. All right, let's see what else they might have for us to go over here. Light bulb, light socket, man. You can go to Home Depot, go to Big Lots, go to Rite Aid, CVS, get a appliance light bulb. Gotta make sure it's an appliance light bulb. All right, your latch door for the latch, common issue where it might not self-clean, it might not activate. So you're talking about $150 part, labor $150, $300 there. All right, so I'm trying gasket, common issue. Gotta make sure that you do not clean the gasket, leave it alone. All right, they tell you that before. So you're talking about $100 for the part, labor $150, $250 total. All right, so that's cool there. Common issue. Terminal block, a common issue. Man, these burn out. They burn out, man. So if you happen to need that, look at that, $29.99, real cheap. They might charge you $50 for that. Labor $150, $250. I mean, labor $50, $150, $200. But they might charge you $250. Shoot, you never know who comes out and what's the price for that. 40-watt light bulb, that's what you need. But $216, but you can probably get that. Like I said, you can get that anywhere. As long as it has an appliance on it, an appliance light bulb. Installation, not a lot of issue there. Don't really have to ever replace any installations. Pretty straightforward, pretty common. Let's look at the door. This is for the upper door. All right, so we can dive into that. Range oven door, inner glass. If you need the glass, $63.25. Common issues for the glass to break over time. All right, so if you happen to need that, then that's just what it is. Range oven door liner. All right, $110.96. Not a common issue, man. They don't tend to break or damage. They're pretty sturdy. The glass, we talked about the outer glass panel. I'm shocked it's the same price though, because it's half the size. But either way, $300, right? Labor $150. You're talking about $450. Door hinges, right? Here's another panel that's white, but you got your door hinges here. $30 a piece, so that's $60. So like I said, we charge you $150, labor $150. You're talking about $300. Yeah, they got a microwave door handle because I guess it's so small, so they call it a microwave door handle. But you're looking at $58.99, $92, $100 for the door handle. Not a common issue for them door handles to break. They're pretty sturdy, all right. But if you happen to need it, then, and if the spacer comes out of them, you right, the spacers could wear out. So you want to think about that. But either way, $100. Range oven door outer panel assembly, stainless steel. Talk about that, $240. We talk about that a lot as well, man. So when you're talking about the price, the part, this is extremely affordable. I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. So we're gonna take that in consideration, man, when we working on this appliance. You already know it's your boy Richie Rich. We in here grinding, getting it in, checking out this Whirlpool range. I'm out. Peace. All right, so for this portion of the video, we're gonna shoot our overall review to let you know exactly how we feel about this Whirlpool electric range with a double oven. All right, so let's get into that real quick. First thing that we're gonna focus on today, man, let's get it. We can talk about the warranty. Warranty, the manufacturer warranty. All right, as far as the manufacturer warranty for this particular range, you are only getting a 1-year manufacturer warranty, both parts and labor. All right, so unfortunately, that's extremely disappointing, knowing that you're gonna spend at least over $1,000, well over $1,000 for this appliance, and they're only giving you a standard 1-year manufacturer warranty. No extra warranty on the cooktop or any elements that maybe a Samsung or LG appliance might give you. So as far as that grade, man, we can only go as low as a 3. So we're gonna give it a 3. 1, 2, 3. A 3. All right, so the next portion of the video, we're gonna focus on the price. How much it's gonna cost you? Might cost you a little, might cost you a lot. Either way, it's gonna cost you. Man, when we talk about price, you're looking at least about $1,500 is the minimum that you're gonna spend for this appliance. The most you might spend is between $1,500 to $1,700, depending on the sale, depending on taxes and everything else. But when we shot the video, you're looking at least about $1,500. All right, compared to the other appliances that's in the market that's connected to this particular unit, right? Different prices. It's really less than what you will probably spend for a electric range that's a double oven as well. You're looking at, for those, at least $1,700, at least $1,800, almost $2,000, and they're actually saving you some money on this one, depending on the color, of course, between the white, black, and stainless steel. All right, so right now we think that is extremely affordable, and it's a really good price, man. So we're gonna give it a 5 because we like the price, because a lot of them are between the $19,000 to $2,000 price range. So we won't give it a 5. It's really less than that. All right, so it's a really good price. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's focus on the next thing. Let's talk about the parts. Man, cost per repair. These are some of the things that customers do not think about when they're dealing with appliances, and we have to also remember that as well, that your appliance is gonna break. And since Whirlpool is only giving you a standard 1-year manufacturer warranty, both parts and labor, that's it. You're not getting anything else. Man, when we're talking about an appliance, really, you're gonna be spending, let's talk about some of these parts. So I gotta check my notes. Your heating element. All right, on average, just for looking at Sears Parts Direct, you're talking about at least $60 a piece. But if we mark those up, you're gonna be spending $250 for that, parts and labor, right? Our labor for our reviews or in our examples, $150. Your convection motor and the blade, because we normally replace both of those together. On average, you're talking about $350. If you have your outer glass that tends to break and crack, you're looking at $500. Your inner glass, to replace that with parts and labor, you're talking about $250. And all the prices that we quote you both have parts and labor as well. So the door hinges, depending on which side you normally would need, we normally replace them both at the same time. You're talking about an average of $300. The main cooktop or the main top that tends to break, scratch, cosmetic use or whatever, you're talking about $550. All right, control board, right? That's expensive in any appliance that you attempt to fix. You're talking about an average of $550, a minimum about $550. The control panel that allows you to touch the buttons and register whatever numbers, different settings, you're talking about an average of $450 as well. Your sensor, $250. Door latches, $300. The gasket, if you need to replace that, you're talking about $250. So on average, you're looking at a range between $383 to $400 each repair, depending on what it is that you're getting. All right, a lot of the parts are extremely cheap. The switches, I didn't even mention those. The switches are like $40, $50. Elements are really cheap, as far as it's like $100. That's really cheap if you're talking about an appliance of this magnitude. So our overall grade for parts is that we're going to give it a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to go to my favorite part, the functions and the features. Man, when you're talking about an appliance, a couple of things that we already like. Let's talk about the elements. You have a triple element that you can put larger pots on. You can also turn it into a dual, and you can turn it into a single as well. We really love that. You also have a dual element on the right side as well, so you can use that. And of course, you have the smaller elements that you can use that's in the back. And you also have a warmer zone. So if you want to melt chocolate, if you want to heat up sauces, it's not going to get as red hot as your front elements or the ones in the back, but it is going to keep the stuff warm. I think the maximum that you can keep stuff on there to keep it warm is an hour. All right, so you want to think about that as well. Check out the functions and features portion of the video. We knocked that thing out like we always do. All right, what else it has on here? It also has self-clean. So you have your traditional self-clean that you can use depending on if it's a normal load or heavy load or medium or small. The max I think is about 4 hours and 3 minutes. The minimum is about 2 hours that you can set for this as well. So you have that. You also have a steam clean that you can use for lighter loads. If you want to do the steam clean, check out the function portion of the video on that as well. So we really like that. A couple things we could mention with the control panel. It's a convection oven, right? So you can convection bake, convection roast. We really like that. Convection speeding up the process of cooking, where you can cook a lot efficiently and a lot faster. We really like that function and feature there. It also comes when you're turning on the elements on top, because we forgot to mention that. You can actually get an indication to let you know when the stove is hot, it shut itself off. Depending on the LED that's lit up at the right portion of the cooktop. You can see it on the control panel as well. So it has a lot of functions, a lot of features. Of course, your traditional bake, broil, roast, all these different stuff that you can actually use in this appliance. So we really like this appliance, man. So as far as our grade for that, we're gonna give it a 4. Four. All right, so let's go over this real quick, man. So as far as the warranty, 3. Price, 5. Functions and features, we're going to do that last. The parts, we give it a 4. Functions and features, we give it a 4. So you divide that, add that all up. It's added up to about 16. Divided by 4, you're talking about a 4.0. All right, so now we like this appliance. The grade is pretty good. Would we recommend this appliance as an appliance to purchase? We will recommend the appliance as an appliance to purchase. We really like this unit. The only downfall to this unit right now, of course, it's not a smart appliance, but not every appliance can be a smart appliance. You do have certain appliances, or certain customers don't really need all that, or don't even like all that. They just like their traditional appliances. It's really good for a traditional brand, which is Whirlpool, that's been around for a while. Parts are easy to get. It's not on back order a lot. So that's another thing there as well. The price is really affordable. The only issue that we have is the warranty, because they don't give you anything after the manufacturer warranty, which is a 1 year. But you can purchase extended warranties if you like, to cover additional parts. You can get it through Whirlpool, or you can get it through wherever you decide to purchase this appliance. But overall, yes, we will recommend this appliance. We really do like this appliance as well. So as far as Whirlpool, we give you a hand clap, man. Of course, you already know who I am. It's me, your boy Richie Rich, at Consumer Appliance Support. You help me, I help you, we both help each other. So next time I'm out of here, man, don't forget, subscribe to the channel. I'm out. Peace.